again on a Friday night, and with this day's edition of This Day in African American Baseball History could be subtitled, and when I don't have enough characters to use, as This Day in Black Baseball History. So we're looking at today, which today is October 17th, 2025. And we're going to look at some baseball facts and feats that occurred from 1897 to 1911. How about that? So some big gaps from the modern day. But I just want to hit on that and start the broadcast almost immediately. So I know people are watching football tonight, lots of college games on, and of course, many people might be away at a high school football game in their community. So, but anyway, you can watch this broadcast later on. And remember, I am trying to get 300 subscribers by the end of October. So we're vastly pulling up on the end of October. So I'm going to be doing some interesting things. Last night, I didn't broadcast live. I did do a short from when I was down in Pittsburgh, Kansas, and we were recognizing the great George Sweat, who's in the Pittsburgh State College. That's down in Pittsburgh, Kansas, not Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's Pittsburgh, Kansas. He's in their Hall of Fame. Of course, he played football there, and he was quite the football player. Actually, he was quite the all-around athlete. In college, he ran track, and his home there in Los Angeles. I do have letters that I had written George Sweat, him and his wife Evelyn, groomer, and she was from Iola, Kansas. Of course, I had relatives in Iola, Kansas, and also I had relatives from Humboldt, where Walter Johnson was there too, but where George Sweat came from. So yeah, and there was a guy many years ago. He's passed away. His name was Richard Davis. Went by Dick Davis, and he was doing quite a bit to restore the local legacy of about for many years for Walter Johnson and also George Sweat in the same town, because one played in the American League and then one played in the Negro League. So he did a great deal, and of course he passed away probably maybe 20 years ago. And I went down there in Pittsburgh, and his granddaughter is carrying on his legacy, and she came to hear me speak, and she was amazed when she walked in the room and she looked at the first screen that was dedicated to her grandfather, who helped me quite a bit, and I helped him quite a bit. And we were trying to make sure that George Sweat is never forgotten. And today, George Sweat is a member of the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame. He's also a member of the Kansas Baseball Hall of Fame. And I had a lot to do at the Baseball Hall of Fame, and then other people had a lot to do with the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame. I will say this, we were able to, I think it was 10 individuals we got in the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame at one time. People like Frank Wickware was on that list, Bingo DeMoss, Dink Mothel, of course, George Sweat. But it was about 10 people. And when we did that, I went down and spoke on behalf of all those people, and that was probably about 2010. It's been a few years, about 15 years ago. So the work continues. Just want to let you know that. So let's jump right in here with This Day in African American Baseball History. Thank you for joining. And here we go. We're going to go to October 17th, 1897, in a game that featured 26 errors and an 11-run seventh inning at Wallace's Ridgewood Grounds in Brooklyn, New York. The genuine Cuban Giants lost a 15-13 game to the National Club team. Man, can you imagine 26 errors in a game? Boy, that talk about some sloppy fielding. And then for someone to score 11 runs in an inning, so that had to be crazy too. So it was probably a wild game there, and it was well attended, and they said people still had a great time in the article that I read. Of course, James Robinson and Bob Jordan formed the battery for the Cuban Giants, who lost that particular game. Now, I don't know if everybody who's following me knows some of these baseball terms. Sometimes I just use them loosely. But a battery is the pitcher and the catcher. So whenever I say the battery for that game, I'm talking about a pitcher and a catcher, just in case you didn't know that. Okay. All right, let's go to another one here. October 17th, 1915. And so we have Joseph Smokey Joe. He also went by Cyclone Joe at that particular time. Pitched a 5-hitter and struck out 10 batters to defeat Philadelphia's National League Phillies 1-0 at New York's Olympic Field. Now, I talk about this all the time. People wonder how good these ball players who are playing outside of the major leagues, and when I'm saying major leagues, I use that term loosely. So we'll say National and American League, how good these black players were. Well, I tell you what, they beat them often. And believe me, if you think that these guys were laying down to take defeat, do you think any of these white teams wanted to be defeated by a black team? No. Now, everybody made money because people came to see these games, but I don't think they wanted to lose, but they couldn't help it. Because when you're facing a pitcher like Cyclone Joe or Smokey Joe, man, this guy could just simply bring it. And he, especially during this particular time of year, when there's a lots of exhibition play going on, you're going to hear people's names like Joe Williams coming up often. And from Sanguine, Texas. I think I talked about him on October the 16th. And I told the story about Fred Patek, who comes from that same hometown. So could a Negro League team full of players you never heard of beat a National League team who is well chronicled? And you can get a Macmillan Encyclopedia. I've been able to get one all my life and know everybody on that team and know no one on this African American team, but yet they were being defeated by these men. I think that's a great story. And this is one of the things that motivated me 45 years ago to begin to tell these stories. And I know John Hallway, he loved to talk about some of these games and in some of his books. So you kind of pour through some of John Hallway's work, you will find some of these games as well. So, but I've always liked to talk about them as well. So Joe Williams, and today Joe Williams is a member of the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. But believe me, there are many others that should be enshrined that never will. I guarantee you, they never will. The numbers are too vast for how good these guys were. All right, here we go. Let's go to one more. October 17th, 1931. Okay, so we got Theodore Ted Trent struck out 15 of Joe Peroni's All-Stars in a night game at Los Angeles White Sox Park, winning 5-0. Talk about underrated and not spoken well of. That's Ted Trent. Ted Trent was a curveball artist, man. He would just come and throw curveball after curveball after curveball. And this guy won so many games. I'm trying to think who it was. I don't know if it was Chet Brewer. Somebody told me, it might have been Ted Ratcliffe, but he said that Trent used to shoot those major leaguers down like they were clay pigeons. So he just tore National and American League players to pieces. So Ted Trent. He's buried in Burr Oak Cemetery along with Walter Ball and a few other great ones. Ted Strong is buried there. Emmett Till's buried in that same cemetery. I've been there. John Donaldson's buried there, and they all passed away in Chicago. Ted passed away from tuberculosis. And so anyway, just a great picture and someone that, we need to revere more highly than we do. So these are people I like to talk about. I love to write about them. If you read my book, John Buckle Neal, His Word, The Rookie, His Words, His Voice, you'll see a nice picture of Ted Trent in there. I received that picture many years ago from Subby Bias, who used to catch Trent all the time. And he spoke highly of Ted Trent as well. So enough said about Ted Trent. Just know that this is a name that deserves more attention. All right, so let's do one more. 1931, October 17th, 1931. Chet Brewer held the Mexico Nationals to 2 hits, while his Monarch teammates collected 15 hits in a big 9-2 win at San Antonio's League Park. Brewer struck out 9 hitters in gaining the victory, and T.J. Young collected 4 hits. Okay, so let's talk about Chet Brewer. Chet Brewer is another guy that I actually knew. I knew Chet Brewer. I actually spent the night at Chet Brewer's house on 3 nights. So going out to Los Angeles, and Chet Brewer invited me in his home. Interesting thing, I'm probably one of the only historians that actually spent the night at people's house. I'll tell you one of the more interesting one. I'm gonna jump back to Chet Brewer in a moment, but let's see, down in Memphis, you know Ernest Withers, the photographer who they said later on was working undercover for the FBI and exposing information on the civil rights movement. I spent the night at Ernest Withers' house too, and uh, and some people have actually spent the night at my house. I know Reggie Jackson's brother, James Jackson. He come to Kansas City. He would stay at my house. So, you know, it's no end to all of the interactions that I've had over the years. It's been just a fascinating run over 45 years. And sometimes when I'm explaining these things, I think, you know, I have to pinch myself to make sure that I'm not dreaming. And for some people to have lived a life like this would be almost a dream. So, but God blessed me, and I was able to do some things that I never thought I would. Uh, so getting back to Chet Brewer, I went out to Los Angeles. Of course, that's where Chet Brewer lived. And Chet Brewer was originally born about 30 miles from my hometown in Leavenworth, Kansas. And an interesting thing about Chet, I will tell you this: Chet would come back periodically, and because he knew a lot of people around Leavenworth, Kansas City, and he has so many friends between Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas, and um, and Leavenworth, that he would rent a room at the Holiday Inn, and then he would invite all of the friends to come, and he would cater lunch, and so they would come and be a big buffet there, and all his friends would come to him because he couldn't get to all of them, so they write these letters and everything, make phone calls, and then he would rent that banquet room, and they would come to him. The first time I ever saw that was with Chet Brewer, and a couple of times Chet would come to town, and I remember one time he wanted a haircut. Now Chet Brewer was completely bald, and so he didn't get much of a cut, but he always kept his head shaved immaculately. And so he came to Kansas City. He needed a haircut, and so I took him down on Fifth Street to a guy named Jack Dickens. And Jack Dickens was an older guy, and he was probably in his late 70s at that time. And Chet Brewer walked in there to get a haircut. Man, boy, it was like an old school class reunion. Them talking about black baseball and the Monarchs and all the people who were around Kansas City, Kansas and Kansas City, Missouri, who played ball with Chet Brewer. So I had a chance to witness all of this, and you know, these are memories that I cherish. And one of these days, I'm actually going to write my memoir and tell some of these stories in a little more detail. I'm always leaving out little bits and pieces, but yeah, it's something that I was really blessed to do. All right. So Chet Brewer, one of the all-time greats. I think Chet Brewer needs more of a consideration for the Hall of Fame for what he did. There's some things I'm holding back on Chet Brewer that I know he achieved, and I know once I put it out there, everybody's going to take hold of it. So I'm not putting it out there yet. But when I do put it out there, it will be in a written form. But Chet Brewer holds a very unique distinction in baseball that no one has been able to discover yet besides myself. And that's probably because I followed Chet Brewer so closely and spoke to him on many, many occasions. Okay, so that was Chet Brewer, and that's where I'm going to leave it right there. Stop there, right there. So that does it for the things I wanted to talk about on October 17th. I will also tell you that I usually do a coming and a going. And that's somebody who was born, that's someone who was coming, and a going, someone who passed away. So we're going to use a coming today. And so October 17, 1911, Joe Greene, catcher for the Atlanta Black Crackers, Kansas City Monarchs, Cleveland Buckeyes, is born in Stone Mountain, Georgia. And he died July 19th, 1989. Interesting thing about Joe Greene, I knew him as well. Back in 1983, I drove down to Stone Mountain, Georgia, and I remember I had a Subaru, and and I went from Kansas City all the way through Atlanta, I went to Charleston. I went down and visited Clint Thomas. And then when in Atlanta, I spent time with Othello Renfro there. And then I went to Birmingham, spent time with Piper Davis. So it was a grand trip, is what it was. And it started in St. Louis at James Coop Papa Bell's house, and I was by myself. So in 1983, and I think at that time I was 25 or 26, right in there. And so anyway, got a chance to go to Joe Greene's house, and I always like to tell the story. Joe Greene, I pulled up, and I got to Stone Mountain about 3 in the morning, and I didn't have to meet with him until like 9 or 10 o'clock, somewhere in there. And so he was waiting for me. And so since I got there so early, I had to find a place to sleep. So I kind of pulled my car over. And from where I pulled over, I could look and see that Stone Mountain Confederate monument shining on the mountain there. They had lights on it. It seems like I remember it was lit up, if I'm correct. Someone can correct me if they live in that area, but it seems like it was lit up. So anyway, I could see, I knew where the monument was. I didn't know at that particular time that it was a Confederate monument. I just saw it, right? You're learning as you travel. You learn these things, but I didn't know the first time I saw it, and so I actually stopped my car by the side of the road, relaxed my seat, and slept there. And then I woke up, and then I drove into Joe Greene's house. He was waiting for me, and Joe Greene said, "What took you so long?" I said, "Well, I think I'm on time." He said, "No," he said, "I've been waiting for you for years." He said, "When we were playing ball, we used to be on the bus, and we would say, one of these days, some guy is going to come along, and he's going to want to write our history." And Joe Greene saw me, and he said, "You're the guy, and I've been waiting for you for a long time." And I was able to meet Joe, and he probably died a handful of years later. His wife was there. We sat out on his patio, and he had a beautiful scrapbook, and he let me copy every picture in his scrapbook. He let me bring his scrapbook back to Kansas City. At that particular time, we didn't have any scanners or anything, so I had to bring it back and have a photographer actually take photographs of the photographs. And so that's what I did. And so I think when I went on that trip and all the ball players I interviewed and things like that, I probably brought back about 400 photographs. And many of those photographs I have not released to this day. And so hopefully I will get an opportunity to do that. And then you'll get a chance to see some of these images that you have not seen prior to now. But yeah, Piper Davis. I remember Piper Davis. He let me borrow his entire scrapbook, and he didn't know me very well, but he said, "Hey, if you don't bring my scrapbook," he said, "you better not ever come back to Birmingham." So hey, I made sure I sent that scrapbook back to him. So anyway, guys, that's about does it for me tonight. My name is Phil. I go by Phil S. Dixon, and I want to thank everybody for joining. I hope you're enjoying this day in Black baseball history with commentary by Phil S. Dixon. And I've got 45 years in the game, and you will not find anyone who can give you these perspectives of actually sitting with ball players. Now, you can find somebody who can pick up one of my books or somebody else's book, and they weren't there, and they can give you some stories. They can give you some statistics that they picked up. But when it comes to actually living the life, that separates the men from the boys. And guys, from that point of view, I call myself a man because I sacrificed my youth to be here today to tell you these stories. And I'm glad I did. So thank you guys, everybody. Hey, if you like what I'm doing here, I'm trying to build this up. And so my goal is 300 subscribers by the end of October. So I've got a lot of work to do. I think the last time I checked, it was 211. I've only been at this for about 3 months. So I know there's lots of baseball fans out there, but I don't know if I'm reaching them or if they're finding these broadcasts. And then some people don't actually use YouTube that much. And then there's some people, they'll watch you over and over and over again, never will subscribe. So guys, I'm encouraging you to subscribe because we have some really good things that are going to come and some good information and if you enjoy baseball, guys, you're going to learn to love this site more and more and more. So thank you guys. I'm out of here about 20 minutes. So you have a nice evening and enjoy college football tomorrow and NFL on Sunday.